girls, today we're going to be talking about some Jeskai Geist. That's right, the colors blue, white, red in the modern format. See, this deck's real simple. We got the Street of Geist in the trap, and we're going to attack with him, and we're going to get him through. We're going to bolt everything. You bolt creature, bolt your face. We don't care. Just a bolt and a snap bolt. It's like a machine gun of bolts. Bolt. You just got to get in there, machine gun the bolts so guys can get in and wreck your face. Now, we also got this backup spells, lightning healers, kind of like a bolt, but a little better, maybe a little more expensive. We don't care. You know why? Because it's still a bolt. We're just going to bolt you. That's what we do here, son. We just do all kinds of bolting. We got this little pad tags. I really don't do much bolting, but you know what it does? Gets things out of the way so that guys can bolt you. Because Geist is also kind of a bolt. We got these, I don't really like these. They just die all the time, but you know what? They got the number 3, which means that they're also a bolt. Yeah! Bolt Geist decks. What we're doing here, boys and girls. See y'all later.
I don't know what happened just now. It's my alter ego came out, and he's kind of aggressive. He's from Texas, and he's kind of got a one-track mind. He likes to attack things, and I'm not sure I'm going to leave that in the video. Just felt like going crazy. Anyway, we are going to be talking about this deck today, and I feel like before I get started, it's important for me to let you guys know that I don't have a list. It's not like, guys, this is my tried and tested, my battle-ready, completely solid list of Jeskai Geist. I don't have that. But what I do have are some thoughts that I want to share with you guys. So, let's do that. Let's just start with the lands. First off, Eiganjo Castle is 100% back on my list, and this is for a few different reasons. There are more small creature decks. Collected Company Elves, Collected Company Abzan, and because of that, there's probably going to be more Pyroclasms, more Anger of the Gods from decks running red. There's more Jund, which could also run those spells. But whether they do or not, there's going to be more Tron because there's more Jund, because Tron preys on Jund. And therefore, there's definitely going to be more Pyroclasms. So kind of like it was back in the days of Blue-Red Delver and Treasure Cruise, we are going to get splash damage from the Delver hate, or in this case, the Collected Company hate and the rise of Tron. So, I think we're better off running Eiganjo Castle for that reason. Shinka, the Bloodsoaked Keep, was cute. I used it many times and killed larger creatures. But, yeah, it's going to be Eiganjo Castle for now. So, and Castle's great. I mean, there are situations where it's better than Shinka, so it's not like that's a bad thing. Okay, so I would never probably change this in a mid-range list. If I was playing Control, maybe I'd have one less path. Actually, no, probably not ever right now. Not with Rhinos and Tassigers and Anglers and Goyfs and Exarchs. I think the ability to remove any creature is... That premium is like at an all-time high right now. So we're definitely going to run 4 Path, 4 Bolt. Now, another spell I want to talk about is Remand. You know, and I feel like I need to say these are not the Team Geist's opinions. These are Nathan's opinions. And Nathan's opinions don't always agree with what Team Geist is doing, and sometimes I give them my opinions, or I don't give them, we discuss it, and then I end up changing my mind based on what they think. Sometimes that's not always the case, but I feel like I need to put a disclaimer out there. Like I said, this isn't battle tested. These are my thoughts. Okay, so Remand. My thoughts on Remand are, in this deck in general, I've kind of had a change of heart, I think. I think Remand is great in the deck, but where I think Remand is best is when you have a threat established, primarily Geist of St. Traft. And the deck isn't always good at setting up Remand to be used in the most optimal way, primarily because Geist costs more than Remand. So if your opponent's on the play, and I'm going to use Liliana as an example, granted they've probably stripped your hand, but let's just use that line of thinking. If you don't have Geist down yet, and they play Lily, I'd much rather leak it, obviously. But my point is that, you know, if you had, let's say you had Geist out and you had mana up and they try to Lily you, or even better, Siege Rhino you, then Remand is great because you're able to convert that tempo advantage, that time lock effect, into a reduction in their life total. But if you're just remanding without applying any pressure, yeah, it's fine. It cantrips, but you haven't really converted that tempo advantage into anything meaningful. And so I think that the deck struggles more than, say, like a Delver deck to sequence its spells in that way because Geist is more expensive. Additionally, I think that Remand's stock has gone down just a little bit. There's not as many Lingering Souls flying around, and Remand was great against those. And Jund is lower to the ground than Obzan, and Remand is not very good against Jund. We want hard answers, but also remanding a 2-mana spell is probably just not that good anyway. A lot of their spells are relatively inexpensive. Remand really starts to get sweet, I think. If your opponent's like tapping, Remand gets sweet at the 3 spot, and the reason I say that is because if you can like remand something and hold up removal, then you're doing well. I mean, there were plays against Obzan where you could get a Geist in play, their answer is Rhino, you path Rhino, you attack, they try to play another Rhino or another thing, and you remand it back to their hand and you attack again. You've gotten in for 12 at that point, and at that point you even have Snap Remand. But I find that it's just not getting that to work that way doesn't always happen. Plus, I think there's just a lot of things. So in addition to Remand stock going down, I think there's a lot of things that I'd like to counter. I'd love to counter. If I'm on the play, I would really love to Mana Leak Summer Bloom. I would really like to Mana Leak a turn 3 Karn. Now, I'm not saying that Mana Leak's great in the Tron matchup because it isn't, but I'd much rather Mana Leak Tron or Karn than Remand it. So I think that, and then Collected Company, Colligan's Command, there's lots of stuff that I would like to Mana Leak. And I actually think that even though Path and Mana Leak are kind of there's sort of a nombo there, I think our deck is better able to leverage Mana Leak than even a control deck because ideally we're also a proactive deck and we're going to kill them before Mana Leak is completely dead. So I think what I'd really probably like to run in this deck is something like, all numbers aside, I think 3 Mana Leak. I can't ever decide if I want to say Mana Leak or Mana Leak. I think I normally say Mana Leak, and I'm trying to say Mana Leak, but I think I'm just going to say Mana Leak. Anyway, I think the number is probably like 3 Mana Leak, 2 Remand. I think that's got to be probably the best because Remand does still have utility. Remand is still awesome. Remand is good at remanding your own spells. Later in the game, if you do have a Geist of Saint trapped out and you have a Remand and they try to tap out with something big and you can remand it and then snap remand it, you're probably going to win that game. So, yeah, I think that's all that I need to say about that. I think Lightning Helix is awesome right now because of all the burn. At some of the versions of the deck I have myself running 3 just to make a little bit of room because it's our worst removal spell, and if we're actually running other hard answers like Mana Leak, then you could. The life gain is relevant, but the life gain aside, if you have 3 or 4 Mana Leaks in a deck, then you're probably going to be Mana Leaking some creatures that you'd be helixing anyway. So, okay, what else? So Vendilion Click. I have thoughts on this creature. One, I think that I have a love-hate relationship with Vendilion Click. I really like it. But in a deck that wants to be proactive, it's really only going to be proactive and represent a clock against combo decks. And I think Click is really good against Twin because of the... I'm trying to say here. Because it interacts with them in a meaningful way. Like, if you don't have a path, or if you think that, that's pretty good. If you don't have a path and they Exarch you or Pestermite you, then you can respond with Vendilion Click and take away their Splinter Twin. And just being able to gain that information and figure out how to navigate the game is really important. So, in the matchups where Click is good, it's really good. But I wrote down a number here. The meta is... No, that was for a different card. Let me just pull it up real quick. Okay, so against Twin, I think we definitely want Clicks. But against Jund, for example, it's okay. Like, maybe you can tuck a Liliana, but they run 4 usually. They run a bunch of redundant spells, and if all of your... It's probably going to die anyway. Or even worse, it's going to get Colligan's Command. So if all you're doing is tucking a Liliana and then they bolt your Vendilion Click, of course, having Liliana around is terrible, but you're overpaying for that effect. 3 mana to tuck a card and have them draw a card against a deck that's not relying on key one-ofs like combo is just, I don't want to do that. That's too expensive. And we're not really getting much value for that mana investment in that spell in general, and we're not proactively advancing our game plan. So I think what I want to do is, I'm not sure what I want to do yet. I may look at some number of Avid Mind Sensors. I may look at like adding a 4th Restoration Angel. I tried that at a recent Grand Prix trial because I think Restoration Angel is just a much more resilient beater and actually does what the deck wants to do. Like, think about it this way. If there was no combo, we wouldn't run Vendilion Click, because Vendilion Click is kind of, it's just a very fragile beater, and we're trying to be a proactive deck. So that's my thoughts on Click. I probably will remove 1 and bring in a Restoration Angel or something like that. Maybe even 2 and put 1 on the board. I don't know yet. I feel like they're primarily there to improve the the combo matchup, and if we're already going to be running some mana leaks, then our matchup's a little better than if we're just running Remand. So continuing on with Click, we don't really want Click against Burn either. It really kind of turns on their Searing Blaze, and that's a deck that tucking 1 Burn spell so that they can draw 1 of their other 20 is just dumb. There's no reason I think we want Click against Burn. Now, Click is okay against Affinity. I mean, they have a lot of sorcery speed threats. Well, it's okay against Affinity. Like, if they have a fast plating, it's not great. It does block. It's kind of like another removal spell. So I guess it's okay in this matchup. But again, that's a place where you could probably be doing something better than just playing a flash speed blocker that may not even be able to tuck anything valuable out of their hand anyway. Now, if it's something they haven't cast, maybe there's a chance that it's actually a good spell. But again, I don't. That's another redundant deck, and I don't know. They do rely on a few key pieces, so Vendilion Click's okay in the matchup. Is kind of what I'm saying. Against Tron, I think it's fine against Tron because they do rely, and it is a clock, and you can maybe tuck a Karn or a Wormcoil Engine. But there's probably, again, better things that we can be doing there. And then against Delver, kind of the same thing. Like, I don't really want Click. It's okay, but they also run redundant spells. And really, I just want to be Geisting Delver, not letting them call against command my Vendilion Click, or, again, overpaying for an effect that is just overpaying for tucking something when it's just going to get bolted anyway. So that's kind of my feelings on it. Does fly. Like, I've been able to fly over some offensive company decks. I guess it's okay against Titan because you can, even if they packed, you can't even take it out because once they packed of Summoning Pact, it goes in their hand. You don't get priority until they've cast it. So it's probably just okay there as well. And obviously it's pretty terrible against Obzan. So, yeah, I think we can. Maybe I just want the clicks on the board or 1 main. I'm not sure yet. Again, these are my thoughts. I'm sharing it with you guys. I'm going to run 4 Geist. Now, this wasn't the original list. This was actually a Forked Bolt. I'm not going to change it over here. And as good as I think Forked Bolt is, because the meta is kind of slowing down and getting grindier, and you're seeing decks like Tron and Controls kind of coming back, and Jund, and more than one deck is running Call Against Command. I think that having a card that helps us grind and draws additional cards that can set up 3-for-1s is really good. So I like having the 3rd Electrolyze. And our deck doesn't draw too many cards, so being able to snap Electrolyze later game is one of our only real sources of card advantage. The deck does have a lot of value in it, but I do think sometimes it's hard to set it up. Like, if you can bounce a Click or a Snapcaster Mage with Restoration Angel in response to them trying to kill it with a removal spell, that's technically card advantage. So that being said, we don't necessarily have cryptic commands and things like that. Just a lot of spells that really help us grind, and so I want that Electrolyze. So Restoration Angels, I think these guys are fine. I wish she was a little tougher than she is. I think she's getting outclassed by some of the creatures, but saving Geist is really important. Bouncing Snapcaster Mage is very important, so we're going to continue to run her. Now, some changes I want to make to the top end of the deck. looking at this metagame again, let's start with Thundermaw Hellkite. Probably not bringing in Hellkite against Twin. It's okay against Jund. Not bringing it in against... Rather, we're actively going to board it out against Twin. We're going to board it out against Burn. We're going to board it out against Affinity. We're going to board it out against Delver. So just in these top 6 matchups, 4 of those 6, we don't even want it. Now, we probably want it against Tron because we're trying to kill him, and it's a big dude. So I think it's fine against Jund. It's just another spell that increases the quality of our top decks. The only thing we really want it against, we probably bring it against Titan if we're just trying to get them dead. But the only deck we don't want it against Control. The only deck we really want it in against is probably Obzan. And it's not like people are going to stop playing Obzan. We're just going to see Jund more often. So if I'm going to keep Thundermaw on the list, I want it in the board. And it's kind of the same with Batterskull. I'm not even 100% sure I'm going to keep Batterskull on the board because you really can't bring it in against decks running Colligan's Command. That's why it has to leave the main deck. Now, it's not the same thing as like getting your Restoration Angel terminated. One Restoration Angel has Flash, but Batterskull you have to tap out on your turn, and then they 2-for-1 you. They blow it up and make you discard a card. So it's just real bad. So Batterskull definitely has to go to the board. Some other thoughts I have. These Sowers were really only for Obzan. So if Obzan is not as prevalent in the meta, then we could probably get rid of them. Because there's a lot more creature decks, we probably want to be running a Wrath effect anyway, whether it's Verdict or Wrath of God. I don't know. Wrath of God is good against the Elves deck, and against everything else, Verdict is fine, but we want some sweeper. I don't know what it's going to be yet. Engineered Explosives is also less good than it was because of Colligan's Command. One of the things we really liked Explosives against was against Jund, but they're not going to, unlike previous, they're not going to board out their, they probably will board out their Abrupt Decays, but they're probably not going to board out their Colligan's Commands. So putting an Explosives on 2 to hit like Goyfs and Bobs and then having them kill it with Colligan's Command and make us discard is just another bad 2-for-1 scenario. The other things are Counterflux. Now, there's been a lot of back and forth in Team Geist about this spell, and I'm personally not the biggest fan of it. It's supposed to be like a hard counter, just a solid, uninterruptible no to save you from combo decks. But against a lot of the combo decks that we bring it in against, they don't really care about it. Scapeshift just remands their Scapeshift. Excuse me, Storm, not Storm. It's okay against Storm. But Storm also runs probes, and a lot of times they can just get 2 grape shots and navigate around your Counterflux. At least that's what I found. It's not even a silver bullet there. And then Ad Nauseam just silences you, so you can't cast anyway. You can counter their silence, but then you're doing what? Nothing. You're just going to die to the combo. Where Counterflux is probably best at is probably against like Twin and Jeskai Control. But I think that it's not primarily for those. It's primarily for combo. And I think we can probably just get by with some number of negates and Dispel. And I like Dispel a lot right now because you can counter Collected Company with Dispel. And I don't know that we'd bring Dispels in against Jund. Maybe. But Dispel could also counter Colligan's Command and Bolts. So, probably don't want it against Jund, but anyway, I really like Dispel against blue decks, and I really like Dispel against the Collected Company decks because it allows you to only have to leave 1 mana up to make sure that you don't get Collected Company, basically. I think Purge is really good. I could almost see like going to 2 Purge in 1 stance. There's just a lot of the big creatures are black. Tasigur, Siege Rhino, and Grimmaw Gangler. I still like 2 Core Firewalkers. I still want to beat Burn. And the Spell Skite was kind of like, it was for Infect. It was also for Twin. But it's really not that great against Twin. Like, I'd rather have Roast, I think. If they know it's there, it makes it a lot easier for them to know how to play their game. Like, they can't combo, but they don't need to combo. And it's just like, you're putting it out there, and you're like, this is the information. Now you know exactly. Like, it may be annoying and harassing them, but they know how to play around it. So anyway, those kind of are my thoughts on the list, and I'm not sure what I want to change it into yet. I've been working on two things. One of them is just kind of what I think of as a general update, and I'm not sold on Dragon Lord Ojita yet, but I do want to talk about him. So when he's doing what he does, he is better than Karanos. He hits harder, and he always draws you a card. He doesn't just draw you a card, he draws you the best of your top 3. So he's better than Karanos, but he's also more fragile. And not just because of the hexproof, he can be Liliana'd, which is a very real danger. Karanos can't be. That being said, he might be more on our plan. It also, let's see, is this, okay, so this is the 60 card version. This is kind of what I've been doing right now. This has always been a pet card of mine. That's Slayer Stronghold. And I really like it with Geist because, you know, the type of Geist decks I like to play, I don't take Geist out very often. And as a late game top deck, Geist does 8 damage. He doesn't have to, you don't have to sit there and hope that he lives through the next turn. You can play Geist, give him haste, attack for 8, and there's a good chance that's enough to kill your opponent. Some other interesting synergies, though, that I didn't... So the reason I brought in Slayer Stronghold was to try with Ojita, because obviously he doesn't lose hexproof if he has Vigilance, and then he hits even harder. But interestingly enough, a Slayer Stronghold also gives Restoration Angel 5 power, so that you can actually trade with Gormag Angler, Siege Rhino, Tassiger, and a lot of Goyfs. So that is something I think that warrants real consideration. And I think I want to be running Slayer Stronghold because of that. Obviously the attacking for 5 with Vigilance is pretty relevant, but also having a Restoration Angel on blocking duty when they have a Tassiger, a lot of times they may just forget attack, and then they think it's going to be a profitable attack, and then it ends up not being. But it may also stalemate, and I'm not saying that stalemate is necessarily where you want to be, but it's definitely better than just, you're still in a better position than, okay, so all I can do is block once with this Restoration Angel against your Siege Rhino, and then it dies. So that's another thing to consider. So this is kind of more of just an update to the list. I didn't know what to cut, so I just threw a Slayer Stronghold in here as a 61st card. And, I feel like adding one extra card and it being a land is really not that bad. Let's see. In this version, I did the 3 leaks, 2 remands, and I might even do something like this, bring in the 4th Restoration Angel. Again, like I said earlier, I don't have a solid list yet. I just have things that I'm trying. Just thinking about. So, this could be something. I don't exactly know what the board looks like yet, but as I said, I like Relic of Progenitus right now. But something that this just hit me a little bit ago. Something I'm considering trying instead of Relic is Surgical Extraction. And I don't know that we want this, but the upside is we run 2 Ghost Quarters, and maybe we even had one in the sideboard, and then Surgical Extraction gets really good against, I think, Amulet and Tron decks. We can start exiling their lands. So that's something to consider. But it also it has utility against the Collected Company decks, against the combo decks. Because we can get Kitchen Finks when it's persisting and maybe get some out of their hand, get some out of their deck. We can get rid of all the voices. We can get rid of the combo pieces. So that's something to consider. Maybe just the targeted removal. Like, maybe instead of having this sit out and trying to target their graveyard and then maybe exile all the graveyards if necessary, maybe Surgical is good enough, while also being able to get rid, have utility against Tron and Summer Bloom, stuff like that. But the nice thing about Relic was also that it made Goyf smaller. So something to consider. But overall, I've been testing relics, and they've been pretty good. I'm not going to say they've been amazing, but they've been pretty okay. Baneslayer has actually been kind of ridiculous. So the reason I took out, like I said, you couldn't make a justification for running Batterskull in the sideboard. But the reason that I'm not is because I still would like to bring in a big giant Trump Your Creatures threat against the green-black decks. And, you know, Batterskull's okay versus versus Tarmogoyf, but against decks like Obzan, Baneslayer just is bigger than all their creatures. Against like pretty much every creature, Baneslayer is just a trump against. And I'm primarily bringing it against Jund and Obzan, but I could almost make a case for bringing it in against Grixis Delver. Like, those matchups get a lot grindier. This version of Delver is not like the Blue-Red Delvers of old. It is a bit more mid-rangey. It has, it can play its threats cheap, but you can answer a lot of those threats, and then it has cards like Colligan's Command, which are on the slower side, and, Tasker can draw them cards, so it can kind of grind, and it's nice to be able to have a creature that is just better than everything that they're doing. Now, it gets terminated, sure, but so would Thundermaw Hellkite, and, if we're not going to run Batterskull against Colligan's Command decks, then we're just not going to have that threat that's just impossible to get rid of. We do have Kuranos, and, it still may look like I still may just not do Ojutai and do Kuranos. I'm not entirely sure yet. Okay, so that's kind of like, again, I don't really have a set sideboard. Maybe something like this. Maybe we can even drop a Wear Tear if we're bringing in a sweeper that we can use against Affinity. Yeah, so that's kind of a list. And then the other one I'm sort of working with is like a hybrid list. Now, I don't really want to go back to the old hybrid list that were running like 4 cryptic commands because I think that's just too many and it's not proactive enough. But in my testing, cryptic has really been quite good. And again, I don't know that I want this third Restoration Angel. Maybe this is just going to be, I don't know, something else. But, this one was a little tighter because, I had like 3 Restos, 2 Cryptics, so I couldn't do the 3-mana 2-man package, so I just did 4 Leaks. And this one also only has 3 Helix. This one's less, it's more towards the control side, and I'm kind of curious about that for a few different reasons. Like I said, I don't think going back to the no Restoration Angel or one Restoration Angel 4 Cryptic is necessarily correct, because I still think you want to have creatures that deal damage and are proactive, because Geist is a very proactive card. And if he becomes your only proactive card, then you're just a control deck. And if you're just going to be a control deck, then maybe you just take Geist out and be a control deck. But the deck doesn't always have Geist. And when the deck doesn't have Geist, without cards like Leak and Cryptics, you're kind of a bad control deck, and you're just sort of relying on your burn and your fragile creatures. That's not to say that Restoration Angel is fragile, but she's not a very fast clock. Also, Cryptic works really well with Geist. Sometimes flattening their team, drawing a card and attacking for 6 is enough to get the job done. But there are, it's interesting, right? Like I said before, that it's hard to sequence Remand and make it perfect with Geist because he costs more, and I think that's true. But because Geist is less than Cryptic, you can actually make Cryptic a really amazing tempo-based spell in a Geist deck. What happened one game? So I guess one game I let them punch me with Tasigur, and they had delved everything away. And then second main phase, they went to go play something like a Gurmag Angler, and I Cryptic the Gurmag. I had a Geist in play. Bounced Tasigur, and now they didn't have enough cards in their graveyard to replay either. And it was awesome. I countered a spell, kind of time walked them or tempoed them back with the investment they made into that Tasigur, and still had a Geist. So Cryptic is just, it's such a versatile spell, and sometimes in my mind I think, it's not a burn spell, it's not a proactive spell, but it's also probably the best blue spell in Modern. And sometimes I wonder if just not running some number of it in our deck is just wrong. Now, one thing to consider is, we want the deck to be proactive, we want it to be really burn heavy, but like I said, if you don't get a Geist, then you have trouble grinding. You have trouble being a non-Geist deck, and I think that Cryptic Command really helps out with that. And I like the idea of the deck being able to sort of even just be even better at switching roles and switching gears. Not only that, but if you're ever in a matchup where you're like, Geist is bad here, and you're boarding out some number of Geists, well, now you're looking like you're bringing in Wraths, and maybe you're taking out all the Geists, and you're just bringing in like Wincons, like Baneslayer Angels. Maybe you're even like Thundermine them. Then you look like a much. Or let's look at this. Look against combo, right? Like, what was it? Hold on a second. Okay, so back to what I was saying. I was like getting my thoughts all confused here. If you're not the beatdown, if you're taking out some number of guys, you're a much better like late game control deck with like Cryptic in it. Snap Cryptic is like a very real thing, and you just have that much more value in the deck. Also, against combo, Cryptic's kind of slow, but you have just more counter spells, and you have you can bounce a charged up Pyromancer's Ascension, like. Not that many people are playing Storm, but I like the versatility, basically. Now, I don't know that this is better than the burn plan. Like, we can burn Jund out a lot more easily than we can Obsian. But if that doesn't work, if we don't get there doing that, then we don't really have a way to grind back in, and Cryptic Command can be one of the spells that can help us do that in that matchup. So it's something to consider. Now, Cryptic isn't great versus Delver. Obviously, it's kind of a big clunky blue spell, but there's a lot of value going on right now. There's a lot of Colligan's commands that are 2-for-1 new. There's a lot of collected companies that are generating extra value, and I want spells in my deck that also have the ability to do that. I feel like I don't just want to be completely tied down to only one plan, and that plan being Geist and Burn. And if that doesn't get there, then we don't have any backups. Now, not saying we never have any backups. Like Restoration Angel is a backup, and Dragon Lord, Ojutai, or Karanos could be a backup. But Cryptic also can help a lot with that. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Kind of, I know, like a long rambling video, and I didn't give you a list, but I just wanted to share with you guys what I'm working on. I can say this about these lists. Let me see here. This is all like a mess now. Modus being done. So yeah, the reason there's 61 cards is, again, this is one of the one that it's 60 cards, but I threw a Slayer Stronghold in as a 61st because I didn't know what else to do with it. Oh, I almost forgot to talk about even Mind Sensors. So Tron, Summer Bloom decks, Amulet decks, Mind Sensor is looking pretty good. I dorked around with this one list. I don't know if it's still in here. It was basically like 3 Aven Mind Sensors, and I squeezed 2 Shadow of Doubts in, just trying to be like be a little bit more of a resource denial deck. Not really so much a resource denial deck as the overriding theme, but have some more resource denial stuff in it. If you can Aven Mind Sensor a land, or Shadow of Doubt a land, and Aven Mind Sensor another land, then you might just win the game based on that. And like I said, Click's just, I think, okay. I mean, in the matchups we wanted, it's really good, but I think 2 is probably fine. We can move the 3rd to the board or something like that. So anyway, yeah, that's that's where I'm at right now. Nothing solid. There's 2 regional PTQs in my area this weekend, and I don't know the list that I'm going to play yet. One thing I was going to say is the deck that I like the most is probably one with cryptics in it. I'm not going to say it's the best because I don't know. But, you know, maybe this click needs to come out and this needs to be like a remand and another remand, or maybe a helix. I'm really not sure. Maybe this needs to be Karanos instead of Ojutai. But I like having the leaks and the cryptics. Maybe it's just more the kind of magic that I want to play. I kind of like casting those spells. You know, another note on Mana Leak is that being able to conserve your path to exiles in some matchups because you can Mana Leak something feels really good. But also, if you think about Geist, we are an aggro control deck, but not the same way Delver is. We're really more of like an aggro. We're really more of like a mid-range control deck, because Geist, while an aggressive and proactive creature, he's not aggressive when it comes to his mana cost. 3 is pretty slow, and it's kind of slow in Modern. So being able to function as a control deck turns 1 through 2, meaning like, okay, you did that, we're going to bolt that, and then we're going to hold up Bleak, and now you're going to try to play Kitchen Sinks or something, or we're going to Mana Leak that, and we're going to be able to cast Geist onto a completely clean board. And one of the reasons that is important is we can save our removal for the creature that they do play after we play Geist. And we can use Mana Leak to save our spell that we're going to need to get to punch Geist through. And I've found that to come up a lot. Whereas if it was just Remand, then not only do we not get rid of that creature, we know 100% for sure that after we play Geist, they're going to play that blocker. And we're going to have to use one of our removal spells on it. So, yeah, I've been pretty happy with some number of Mana Leak in the list. Okay, I'm sure I'm starting to get redundant, and I know that these videos can be long and rambling, but I'm pretty sure I got all of my talking points out there. We talked about Iganjo, Slayers, Mana Leak, Cryptic, Ojutai, Batterskull, Hellkite. We talked about how Purge was good. I still think Stance is great. You may be able to trim one Stance, though, if we're bringing in something like a Wrath of God. I've been bringing in a Wrath of God against the GBX decks because sometimes they get in these situations where, you know, you don't have, they've stripped away your paths, and they've been able to go like Tarmogoyf, and top decking a Wrath of God and killing both is fantastic. So, all right. That's enough. I'm really done this time. Guys, thanks for watching. Let me know how you feel about, you know, where my thinking is. Let me know if you think I'm off base. All this stuff makes theory crafting sense to me. It makes logical sense to me on paper, and then in testing, things like the Mana Leaks and the Cryptics being good in the deck and various other things in Baneslayer, like all of it's been good as well. Like the extra electrolyze, I'm sure, is right. Like a lot of this stuff is right. I just don't really have a fundamental list. It's really, for me, it's coming down to, am I going to do a cryptic list, or am I going to do a cryptic list? So, all right, guys. I will talk to you guys soon. I know that, I guess it's Modern season, and I know that there's probably a few of you that are going to like Grand Prix Charlotte or other regional PTQs, or sorry, not RPTQs, pre-PTQs. I have 2 pre-PTQs this weekend. I'm going to try to go to both, but I may only be able to make the Saturday one. We'll see what happens. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope that you draw well and smash face. Talk to you soon.